Hello, my name is Ed Chapman, and this video cast is going to make an attempt at helping you understand the basics of photosynthesis. Sorry about the bell. All right, first of all, the basics. There is no energy in water or carbon dioxide. Okay, there is energy in sunlight. So that means some organisms can take the energy from sunlight and use it to push together carbon dioxide and water molecules to build molecules of sugar, which is a kind of food. Now, in order to do photosynthesis, you of course need water and carbon dioxide. These are gathered in from the environment, and you push these together to produce molecules of sugar or glucose. In order to make this happen, we need an energy source, and that energy comes from sunlight. Sunlight is electromagnetic energy, normally not available or not useful for cells to actually run their metabolisms. But food calories or food molecules are available for cells to run their metabolisms. So it's very important that you have a way of either making or getting food. And plants, best example I can think of, do a process called photosynthesis to make their food. Now, in order to do photosynthesis, you need a certain number of each of these reactants to make the products. And in this case, photosynthesis, you need 6 water molecules, 6 carbon dioxide molecules, and some sunlight energy to make 1 molecule of glucose. And you can see here the chemical formula for glucose, which tells you it contains 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. Right above that, you can see the structural formula of glucose, which basically looks like a hexagon. Now, we can write this as a chemical reaction with an arrow pointing from the reactants to the products. And here, to make the equation balance, we have to add in some oxygen, which is a byproduct or a waste product of photosynthesis released into the atmosphere by most plants. So the balance reaction for photosynthesis looks like this. We have 2 reactants going in and 2 products coming out. If we count up the atoms, they have to match on both sides, and you can see here that they do. Okay, photosynthesis can be thought of as an uphill reaction, which means it's not going to happen spontaneously. It has to be, quote, pushed, unquote, uphill. So in this graph, you can see on the y-axis we have energy, and on the x-axis we have time, or the course of the reaction. And you can see by following the red line from left to right that the reactants start out very low in energy and the products are very high in energy. So the difference in energy between the reactants and the products is the amount of energy that the reaction needs to happen. And in this case, photosynthesis, that energy comes from sunlight. So we can call this reaction an endergonic reaction because it needs energy to push it uphill. It's not spontaneous. Now, the details. Photosynthesis needs some equipment to take place inside of most cells. The first thing you need is a pigment to absorb some of this light energy. Pigments are chemicals that are usually brightly colored, and they are able to absorb some of the electromagnetic radiation. They also need a place to keep all these chemicals. So we need a compartment or an organelle to hold the equipment, the enzymes, the chemicals for photosynthesis. And finally, we need the little molecules that are grabbing onto substrates and causing them to change. These proteins are called enzymes, and they make things happen. They run your metabolism, and photosynthesis is part of the metabolism of plants. Now, chlorophyll, of course, is the pigment. It's the pigment that absorbs sunlight, and it's green. It's green because that's the color of light it's not absorbing. So chlorophyll, as a pigment, preferentially absorbs red and blue colors of sunlight, but reflects green. The compartment, or the place where the chemicals are kept in most plant cells, are called chloroplasts. And these look like little cells inside of plant cells. And there are over 20 different protein enzymes that are needed to run all the steps of photosynthesis. You guys don't need to know much about these enzymes at this level of biology. Now, this is a picture of a chloroplast, and you can see that it looks like a small cell. It's actually descended from free-living photosynthetic bacteria that millions of years ago found a way of living symbiotically inside the cytoplasm of larger cells. This is actually an organelle, we call a chloroplast, and it's inside of larger eukaryote cells. It's one of those organelles found in the cytoplasm. Now, the chlorophyll is located in the innermost membranes of a chloroplast. The arrow here is pointing to a structure called a granum, and each one of the layers is called a thylakoid. And inside the thylakoids and in the membranes of the thylakoids is where the chlorophyll molecules are actually located. Now, in order to use a chloroplast to make sugar, you've got to shine sunlight on it. So assume you have a chloroplast inside of a living cell that's exposed to sunlight. Water is going to be brought in from the environment, usually through the roots in larger plants. You're also going to bring in carbon dioxide through openings in leaves of many plants called stomates. And you're going to get from this process molecules of glucose, C6H12O6, and oxygen, which is our waste gas. Autotrophs are organisms that have the ability to make their own food. Most of the time, when people think about autotrophs, they think of photoautotrophs, which of course are making their food using light energy. Examples of photoautotrophs are plants and algae. There also are other autotrophs called chemoautotrophs, which make their food using chemicals. They don't need sunlight. The best example of these are some of the archaebacteria, which are also called extremophiles because they live in environments that are very extreme, and they use heat, chemicals, sulfur compounds, all sorts of nasty things that are poisonous to most other cells in order to make their food. Just as a sideline, it's important to know that photoautotrophs are not the only producers out there. Thank you. That brings us to the end. We'll stop there.